For years, if not decades, fans of football, or as we affectionately call it, soccer in the US, have been waiting for the beautiful game's big watershed moment to prove doubters wrong and excitedly claim, "We told you so." The world's most popular sport had arguably its biggest boost in a country where another football reigned supreme, following hosting the 1994 FIFA World Cup. As part of the deal, the US promised to launch its own Division 1 domestic men's soccer league. But as is the case with most things, from units of measure to pharmaceutical ads, the US wanted to do things its own way. And thus began Major League Soccer in 1995. As the league has experienced its share of growing pains in the last 3 decades since, soccer and MLS are stronger than ever in 2026. Hoping to ride the momentum of the 2026 FIFA World Cup coming to the continent this June, soccer in the US is poised for what it hopes is an even bigger boost than it had following the 1994 tournament. In anticipation of this, MLS is set to usher in its latest iteration, MLS 3.0. Is the MLS making these improvements to not only strengthen its product domestically, but more importantly, to be better equipped to compete internationally? We take a look at the benefits and drawbacks of MLS 3.0 in this week's episode of Finance of Football. I'm veteran sports journalist Michael Array.
And I'm the Athletics Women's Soccer business reporter, Asli. Welcome back to Finance of Football. Michael, what an intro and what an interesting topic. I think this month and the rest of the year, we're going to be talking more and more about that. MLS kicked off its 31st season on Saturday. Wow. On February 21st, while we previously discussed that the league is in prime position for its most fruitful campaign yet, as momentum swells ahead of the World Cup in this continent, the league also has its sights set on a bigger and a better 2027 and beyond. And let's take a look at why. Deemed one of the most important decisions in our league's history by the MLS Commissioner Don Garber in November, MLS will adopt a summer to spring calendar, the calendar that the rest of the world is playing, especially the big European leagues, aligning the world's top soccer leagues. The 2027-28 MLS regular season will begin mid to late July in 2027 and conclude with the MLS Cup playoffs and MLS Cup in late May 2028. Like other major international leagues, with the end of, EPL and also final of Champions League, MLS will observe a big midwinter break from December through early February, with no league matches scheduled in January. Mostly for some of the states in the U.S. Will be under heavy snow, like New York is today.
Please don't remind me. I don't want to look out my window, especially as you're down in Argentina enjoying the summer. I think the biggest advantage for this calendar switch for the MLS is it can participate more effectively in major transfer windows, right? Like you're looking at the summer and you're looking at the winter, and these windows are ahead of the league starts and restarts. So before the season kicks off, they'll have time to go out, get players, buy them, sell them, and then coming out of the winter break as well too. So I think if MLS wants to consider itself this major player in global soccer, which it says it is, this gives the league more opportunities to compete globally. So, no one's going to compete with the Premier League in terms of spending, right? They spend a record amount of money. You're never going to compete with that, but it gives Major League Soccer the opportunity to compete with other European leagues that are looking for similar talent.
I mean, we will be maybe doing record-breaking sales. That's a possibility for MLS. Like, we would be able to sell players. Like, we might not be able to break the EPL record by buying expensive players because of the salary cap, even though we have a designated player rule. It will still not make us to get there. But who says we cannot make expensive transfers out and sell the world talent the way some of the South American countries have been doing for a longest time?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be beneficial from a financial standpoint, and also too just from a team cohesion standpoint, right? Like if you were MLS of yesteryear, you're bringing in players in the middle of a season because that's where the transfer windows would occur. So now you have these players who are able to come in, they're able to get integrated into the squads more efficiently and effectively during breaks, not in the middle of the season. So that's only going to strengthen the product on the field, which then leads to better commercial success, television, all those other things. So it just lots of benefits all around, but that's not the only thing, right?
From a broadcast perspective, this will be an interesting season for sure that the league will not be competing with the NFL. I think MLS playoffs not competing also with the NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, that gives them a fair negotiation opportunity for sponsorship for advertising. That would be something that I'm sure a lot of people are looking forward to. And I think this is an important detail. According to The Economist, soccer is the third most popular sport in the U.S., surpassing baseball and only trailing American football and basketball. A really important, I think, detail we can add here, as you might have seen in the news, ESPN has changed Sunday night baseball slot with the women's sports slot. That shows that women's soccer or any soccer might be replacing some of these America's favorite pastimes today, and then especially beyond the 2026 World Cup, right? That's the watershed moment we're looking for. So comes 2027 season, people will be hopefully looking to see more soccer on their screens.
Yeah, and I think just touching on the media rights as well too. We all know MLS and Apple had that 10-year, 2.5 billion global media rights deal. RIP MLS season pass. They got rid of that starting this season. But the deal is going to be cut about 3 years shorter than it was supposed to go. So again, having this change in schedule, having maybe some more stars coming and going through the league and just making it more competitive could be more beneficial for MLS as they go shopping to market with these next, media rights negotiations, which obviously they're not going to wait until the last minute to do. So, we'll expect those in the next year or so, knowing that the Apple deal isn't going to go its entire 10 years. But, there's lots of things pointing in the right direction for MLS, before and after the World Cup this summer. And because of that, it's no surprise people want to get in on the action. Last episode we
Mhm.
discussed some of the more significant suitors to join the league should MLS want to grow from 30 clubs to potentially 32, like the NFL. Sacramento Republic FC is one of those clubs. They're setting themselves up for success, whether it's in Major League Soccer or USL Premier, which is the new Division One league launching in 2027 as USL introduces promotion relegation. The club broke ground on a new stadium in August. They announced the additions of Tim Holt as president and general manager, as well as the acquisitions of Memo Rodriguez and Mark Anthony Kay, two players who, boast significant MLS experience. So, these things aren't being done by coincidence, right? These are strategic moves by this club that has big ambitions in the future. Joining us to discuss the club's ambitions in 2026 and beyond is Sacramento Republic FC managing partner Kevin Nagle.
Hi, Kevin. Thanks for joining Finance of Football. How are you?
Good. It was a great weekend. Both my teams that, won preseason, one, we're trying to fight it out to ensure a playoff spot. So it was a good weekend.
I know you guys just announced or will be announcing later today for the new stadium there at the rail yards, a new president and GM, and then a signing of a couple big name players for the club as well too.
The stadium is very interesting. We've been dealing with for months now, but it also changes with time depending on, what 2 years from now, what we're going to look like, and that could be, I believe we'll have a Division One team, in the USL. And so I think that, we're going to have to play to that level according to what the guidelines are. That might mean the stadium gets larger. And so that means that we have to plan for that right now. And so we're really excited by that. We're meeting weekly on that, but the work continues. That's the first thing. The second thing is really excited by the fact that I've got a new president coming in. We've got a guy who's very experienced, Tim Holt. He's worked with the league in the USL. He also was the president of San Antonio. They won everywhere, everything that they did. He took a year off to be with his family, like we all should do once in a while. And now he's back, and he's going to be firing all cylinders. Coming to Sacramento, he's got a great opportunity with obviously building a new stadium, and then at the same time, a franchise that historically wins year over year and gets in the playoffs. Really excited by that. And then, of course, you asked about the signings. We got a couple really, quality players that are going to come on board, and Mark Anthony Kay and Memo Rodriguez, who are, MLS, caliber players that we're going to have for us for this year. really excited by that.
I love that. You mentioned USL Premier, and I know there's a lot of excitement around the launch of this new Division One league, and obviously the introduction of promotion and relegation in the USL. So, what does that mean for you and your club? Like, are you guys saying, hey, USL Premier, this is where we want to go? And like you said, with the stadium, we need to have certain things in place for that. What are some of the benefits and drawbacks to that? Because you guys are obviously in the championship right now with the potential to move up a level.
Sacramento Republic has been invited to come in MLS in the past. Just didn't work out for, a variety of reasons, which that's a discussion for another day. But I would say this much. We're ready for the top division. And I was very bullish on it with the USL as our ownership there. We're voting on it. Because of the fact that I own Huddersfield Town, I've seen what promotion and relegation, what it does. That hurts in some cases if you go down, and it helps if you go up. And I see the real opportunity and the excitement, and I think that will bring a different dimension to soccer in the U.S. especially, because we don't have that here. But bringing that here to the U.S. I think is going to bring excitement. Now having different divisions move up, whether it's going to be at the Premier side or at the same time Championship and then a League One. So now you've got a vertical of 3 that are going to give teams an opportunity to play. It's got to look a little bit different than the UK and other places around the world, but I think it's going to be really exciting for the country, and especially because the fact that we have World Cup coming, it's going to expand the eyeballs of people who are going to watch soccer beyond just the World Cup. And I think that the league is going to be able to take advantage of that in time.
MLS is going to change its schedule to sync with the European schedule, summer to spring, I would say. That will benefit the league and a sport in a variety of ways. One of them will be definitely player transfers. And how does that work in terms of creating a pipeline to the world soccer leagues, the global soccer leagues from the US? And how would that impact your team or, USL teams in general, you think?
Now, you could argue to say, you're going to be the USL as its present form is that they're going to be playing at times when there's no, professional football or soccer being played. So they may be able to pick up that gap. People want to watch, good quality, soccer. They're going to be able to find it. However, I also think that your players, you want to align that. And that's what I would say is you want to align it so that you can trade players and you can get them on loan if you want to, or purchase them outright. And so I know what the international market is like. I really wanted to align it candidly so that really both my teams, whether it's the Republic, because they were playing at the same level, that we could just do some trading ourselves really intra-company wise. But now because of the fact that, the seasons are different, it's been hard.
You obviously want to see that switch in the USL that MLS is doing in 2027. Do you foresee that happening in USL, especially as they introduce USL Premier? Like, do you think that's going to be part of the league's changes?
It's a great point, Michael. I actually have just only raised it internally a little bit, but there's
And externally now.
yes. And now it's going to be, and now extra. Well, that's all right. I don't have a problem, because I think it's a discussion that we need to have. And I think that, all ownership, within the league needs to have it. And it might be that, the ownership of the league itself may not feel that way. But I do believe that we need to be aligned. It's going to be good for the sport. It'll be good for us. And I think that will be, especially the fact that we're going to have promotion relegation in time, it's going to add just one more dimension to it that will make us unique and different from what we see, in the US. That's what I like about it. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's hard to have one of those things in promotion relegation and not be aligned on the calendar with the rest of the world and those top leagues. So I imagine if it's going to happen, it's going to happen to coincide with the launch of USL Premier.
Yeah, and those would be the points that I raise. I mean, to your point, as an owner, is that we will raise those questions to say, when is the right time? I'll be saying, when is the right time to make that change? I might be outvoted on that, but I do believe that I think there's a lot of ownership support for it now that MLS has moved in that direction. Not that we're following them, but it just makes all the sense in the world for what we're trying to accomplish, especially with promotion and relegation and the international markets, because you want to trade internationally and make it a lot easier, because that is even difficult now, because sometimes you might get a player that you're out of season, and it might be that player is, not in full, in complete shape. And so you're dealing with other elements as well.
You mentioned loaning a player. I mean, I don't even think in America a lot of people understand the concept of loaning a player. Like that saves a lot of teams from bankrupting or just like making a few bucks like between the seasons. It's such an important, I think, aspect of global soccer.
Well, it does, except for it does more than that. For example, we've got a player in Huddersfield Town who is a striker. He just wasn't getting much play time. And, he was somebody that we've got an investment in. And I mean, we really like him. His name is Joe Taylor. I'd say that. We put Joe on loan to a team called Wigan, actually, who competes with us. And he's just gone off. He's scored 6 goals in 7 games. And so, the investment in him as the person is going up, and it makes us say we need to get him back. You can never have enough strikers, as you can imagine. Surprise, right? But in the end, what that does is it creates value on all fronts. It benefited the team. That team was really struggling. They've won a lot of games since he's been there. They're now back competing. In fact, they're just a few games behind us, on the point side. So I like that. And your point is well taken, but there's even more so, as I said.
Are you trying to cut that loan deal short and bring him back immediately into the squad since he's not
well,
there?
It's funny. You think you have too many, and then what happens is you get a couple of injuries, and we did. Guy who was our lead striker got injured, and then we had one of our guys got a second red card. Guy named Alfie May. He went out. So he's out for 4 games. So we then went from having a surplus to now having a shortage. But what we did in the meantime is we actually got on loan from Wrexham, one of their strikers, and he came in and he scored our second goal in our game on Saturday, and we won. So you can never have enough, as they say. Either one of you guys strikers?
No, Michael could be better than I. I'm definitely not a striker, especially postpartum. But you mentioned Wrexham. I cannot not ask you, how did Wrexham's global success as a, not only as a team on the pitch, as like a entertainment product, impacted your team and the rest of the league?
I mean, we played them last year twice, and so when we went to Wrexham, there were cameras in our face, and they interviewed us. And then when they came to Huddersfield, it was the same thing. But I mean, I think it's good for the sport. I really think it's good for the sport. They've done a lot. They've done a lot in terms of raising the level. I mean, it's been really truly amazing. They came from being a National League team to a tier, to a second League 2 to a League 1 to now a championship, and good chance to be competing to see if they can get that last spot to go up in the Premier League. That's really just an amazing story. It's very similar to what Ipswich did, previously. And I mean, it's to really move in the same way. It's a great story, but it's hard to stay up. The one thing that I've said, Huddersfield Town has been in the Premier League. It's one thing to get there. It's another thing to stay. It's really hard to stay. And I mean, just ask Leeds. They've been up and down, and they're good friends of mine. That own the club, and it's hard. And so you're competing with 6 or 7 really strong teams that are really super well capitalized, that kind of have endless capital, and you have to compete with that.
Exactly. One of the most important weeks in European soccer, especially in England, is that week when promotion and relegation matches, the playoffs happen. That's like an incredibly successful broadcast product for them. Actually, even beats sometimes big derby broadcast ratings. Do you think we have that kind of passion in the US that will also bring eyeballs to potentially a lucrative broadcast deal for the USL? Is that the hope among the owners and managers?
Well, I think it's going to be exciting. Do we have the same passion? I mean, because I own a team in the UK, I can tell you the passion is very different, because you're dealing with really teams that are hundreds of years old. I mean, Huddersfield Town was founded in 1908, and there were many teams that were founded before us. The Sacramento Republic was founded 12 years ago, 13 years ago. So you're talking about a variance, and I think just the culture of America. We we love our sports. We love entertainment in them. And, really entertainment, I think, is secondary in the UK. The competition is first. And we I think, kind of try to balance those out in the US. But the answer to your question is I do think in time it's going to be something that's going to be very exciting, because I believe one of the reasons why there's why there's been so much interest in the US in European football, and particularly the UK, is because of the promotion of relegation model. It's not a closed system like what we have in MLS. And so you can see it. Look, as much as I don't like to say it, when I bought the team, Huddersfield Town, we were in the championship. We're in League One right now, trying to fight back up to get in the championship. That's tough medicine to swallow when you get relegated. And it looks very different than when you get promoted, because you have to respond to the moment. And I think our fan base is going to appreciate that, because you have to invest more. If you're going up, you've got to invest a lot more. You've got to look at how do the leagues play. The leagues play very differently. The championship plays very differently than League One, and certainly very different than what the Premier League looks like.
How often do you go to the other side of the pond?
Every 4 to 6 weeks. So I'm a couple weeks out. By then, I hope we've won another couple of games and we've, positioned ourselves for, a strong playoff spot. This is a sport, as you guys know, this is a sport of momentum, and it's not good to go into the playoffs losing a bunch of games. You're much better to go into a playoffs winning a bunch of games, because your players, their mindset is in a different place. And so we want to get there. We just came off, we made a coaching change, at Huddersfield Town. He won 3 games in a row, some really good games, and 2 of those games were with 10 players, and we pulled off, some huge wins, and some of them were derby games, to what you mentioned earlier. But, we had a couple losses, and then now we've gotten back on the winning track. So I'm excited about what we're going to do this Saturday.
Amazing. Well, best of luck.
We really appreciate you taking the time, and best of luck to the Republic and Huddersfield as well.
Big season ahead. Thank you. All the best to you guys.
Welcome back to Finance of Football. We close this week's episode, as we have every episode this year, with a segment we called World Cup Date, trademarked by my dear Michael Lorre.
Yeah.
If you haven't gotten it by now, it's World Cup updates we believe are worth sharing with you. It's been another rocky week for the World Cup, as the New York, New Jersey host committee had to cancel its planned tournament-long fan fest in Liberty State Park in Jersey City, New Jersey. Quick note why this park was important. Other than its beautiful views, it was also going to be the first ever official FIFA World Cup fan fest to charge an entry fee. The committee said in a statement on February 20th, an expanded network of fan zones and community celebrations across counties in New Jersey will serve as a cornerstone of the region's official fan engagement program, end quote. However, a lot has changed since this announcement. The new New Jersey Governor Mickey Sherrill announced a $5 million initiative on February 19 to fund community World Cup initiatives, and says it's planning a different route for the fans. Michael, how about you? What do you have?
Yeah, I love it. It's like we have a studio show. We're sat next to each other, passing along the news. Further north, up in near Boston in Foxborough, Massachusetts, the city is threatening to give 7 World Cup matches the boot to be hosted at Gillette Stadium if it doesn't get an answer on where the $7 million in security costs are going to come from. Foxborough has not signed off on the needed entertainment license for the matches at the home of the New England Patriots. So as part of Gillette Stadium hosting these World Cup matches, the Kraft Group, led by Robert Kraft, who we know is involved in the NFL with the Patriots and then Major League Soccer with the New England Revolution, is basically leasing the stadium to FIFA. And in order to sign their temporary landlord-tenant agreement, the town of Foxborough needs to sign off on this entertainment license. But there's issues about where this money's coming from. The town can't afford the $7.8 million needed for security for the 39-day tournament. The Boston Host Committee said that the grant funding will cover costs, but they're waiting on the White House task force and FEMA to dole out the money. So interesting up there that we are, 4 months away from the World Cup, and there's still issues, logistics and money, of course, over this. Board Vice Chair Stephanie McGowan said, quote, "We're not prepared to issue this license unless everything is in place. I've seen people saying, oh, there's no way they won't. I'm going to tell you this board will not issue this license. So lots to figure out in and around New York, New Jersey, and Boston and Foxborough ahead of the World Cup. Again, starting in the middle of June, and it is the end of February. So buckle up, folks. Finance of Football comes to you from the Frequency Machine Podcast Network. Hit us up on Instagram and YouTube at Finance of Football Pod for more football business and our enlightened opinions. Or search Finance of Football on LinkedIn and Facebook. This episode was produced by co-host Michael Array and Asli Pellet. It was edited by Ryan Hammond. Mixing and mastering by Julian Kwasniewski. Our theme music is by Hatamitsunami. Our show is executive produced by Ryan, alongside Stacy Book and Avi Glajansky for Frequency Machine. Find more about Finance of Football at frequencymachine.com. Follow us on YouTube at Finance of Football and listen anywhere you get podcasts. Please like and subscribe. Help us reach more people. We love you for it.